You know what's creating a real um, buzz among developers lately?
What's that?
This thing called Model Context Protocol, MCP.
Ah, yeah.
If
MCP.
you're using tools like Cursor or maybe Claude, you might have bumped into it already. Feels like it's really, poised to change how we work.
Absolutely. It's definitely gaining traction. And I think it's because it tackles a real core friction point, right? That constant need to juggle like a million different applications when you're coding.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Think about how much time just gets vaporized switching contexts.
It's a huge drain.
Exactly. And, well, that's precisely what we're diving into today. Our goal is to show you, our listener, how you can actually hook up Cursor, which, let's face it, is getting super popular to a whole bunch of these MCP servers. We're talking about bringing those, complex workflows right inside your coding environment, making things way smoother.
Yeah, the potential for boosting your productivity is pretty significant there. I mean, consider this. Some studies suggest developers switch between, 5 or more apps for just one task.
Wow, 5+.
Yeah. MCP really offers a way to sort of consolidate all that.
Right. So, okay, in this deep dive, we're going to cover the essentials. You need to understand this shift. First, let's get really clear on what MCP actually is.
Okay.
Then, we'll look at a practical, step-by-step way to connect Cursor to these MCP servers. We'll focus a bit on how Composio makes this easier.
Yeah, they have an interesting approach.
And finally, we'll look at some solid, real-world examples of how you can use this stuff. Okay, let's unpack it. What exactly is the Model Context Protocol?
Okay, so at its core, MCP is basically a new standard. It's open. And what it does is define a consistent way for different applications, different tools to provide relevant information, we call it context,
Right.
and also their specific tools to large language models, LLMs.
Okay.
Think of it almost like a standard language. So AI can talk to all your existing tools without needing custom integrations for every single one.
So kind of like a universal adapter.
Yeah.
Or the article we looked at called it a plug-in system for Cursor. I kind of like that.
Yeah, that's a really good way to visualize it. A plug-in system.
Because it highlights how it just extends what the editor can already do, right?
That's it, exactly. MCP essentially expands what AI agents, the things inside Cursor or Claude, what they can do. Instead of the LLM just working in isolation, MCP acts as this bridge.
A bridge.
Connecting it to all sorts of different data sources and functionalities that live outside the LLM itself.
Okay, give us some tangible examples. Like, what kind of actions can an AI agent do with MCP that maybe were impossible or just way harder before?
Sure. So imagine you're chatting with an AI agent right inside Cursor. Using MCP, that agent could say, send an email through your Gmail account.
Whoa.
Or create a new task in Linear, your project management tool.
Okay.
Or search for specific documents inside your Notion workspace. Post an update to your team's Slack.
Seriously?
Yeah. Or even update a record in Salesforce, all from you just typing a natural language instruction.
Wow. Okay, that is a game changer. No more bouncing between 5 different tabs. It all happens right there in your coding workflow.
Precisely. And the underlying structure that makes this work is what we call a client-server architecture.
Right. Client server.
Think of it maybe like a restaurant. Your host application, like Cursor, is the customer, the client. It makes requests.
Okay.
And the MCP servers are like different chefs, right? The servers. Each one specializes in a particular service or a type of data. Gmail chef, Slack chef.
Got it. And Cursor can talk to lots of different chefs at once.
Yep, it can connect to multiple servers simultaneously.
Now, okay, whenever there's new tech like this, there are always, misunderstandings flying around. What are some common things people might get wrong about MCP?
That's a really important point to clarify. First off, MCP isn't trying to replace existing APIs.
Okay, good distinction. APIs are the application programming interfaces, right? The way software talks.
Exactly. In fact, MCP often uses those APIs behind the scenes. What MCP provides is a standardized way for the LLMs to interact with those services through those APIs. It's more like a universal translator on top.
Okay, so it's not throwing out the plumbing, just making it easier for the AI to turn the faucet.
Nice analogy.
Yeah.
What else? Another misconception might be that building these MCP servers is super difficult for developers.
Right, that is some arcane magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while, sure, creating one from scratch definitely involves some work, there are resources out there, SDKs, software development kits.
SDKs.
And even templates that can really simplify the process. An SDK is basically just a toolkit, libraries, to help developers build stuff for a specific platform.
Good to know it's not some impossibly complex mountain to climb. What's another one?
Maybe that people think the MCP servers themselves actually store your data, like your emails or your tasks.
Ah, okay. Security concern.
Right. But that's not accurate. They really function more as secure connectors or bridges, like we said, linking the client app, like Cursor, to the original data source, like Gmail, without actually holding the data themselves.
So it's just passing messages, essentially.
Pretty much. And, oh, one last thing. It's worth noting that MCP isn't just for remote servers out there on the internet. You can also set up and run MCP servers locally, right on your own machine.
Oh, interesting. So you get flexibility in how you deploy it.
Yeah.
All right, that definitely gives us a much better handle on what MCP is and, importantly, what it isn't. Now, let's get practical. How do we actually connect Cursor to these servers? The material we've got really features this platform, Composio, quite a bit.
Yeah, Composio offers a really streamlined approach. What makes them stand out particularly is they offer over 100 pre-configured MCP servers that handle the authentication part for you.
Authentication, like logging in.
Exactly. Logging in, getting permissions, that significantly lowers the barrier to entry. Saves developers a ton of hassle.
Built-in authentication.
Yeah.
Okay, that does sound like a major plus. So what do I need to get started? What are the prerequisites?
Okay, first thing you'll need is to make sure you have Node.js installed on your system.
Node.js, right. Common JavaScript runtime.
Yep. And it's Package Manager, NPX. These are pretty standard tools for modern web development anyway.
Got it. Node.js and NPX check. What's the next step inside Cursor then?
Okay. Next, you need to actually flip the switch for MCP inside Cursor itself. You can usually do this by opening Cursor's command palette for all.
Control plus Shift plus P, usually.
Yeah, something like that. Then just search for Settings. In the Settings sidebar, you should find an MCP option. Just make sure that's enabled.
Simple enough. Okay, MCP is toggled on in Cursor. Now, how do we actually make the connection? You mentioned Composio has predefined servers.
Exactly. Composio maintains this directory like a list of these ready-to-use servers. It's at mcp.composio.dev.
mcp.composio.dev, okay.
And the really useful part is, like I said, these servers come with built-in authentication. They support various methods like...
OAuth, yeah, like sign in with Google.
Kind of, yeah. It lets one app access another on your behalf without sharing your password. Also things like API keys, JWTs, basic auth. It covers most bases. And this often means you don't need to build your own custom login stuff for every single service you want to connect to.
Man, that avoids a huge headache. And the article also mentioned MCP isn't just a Cursor thing, right? Like Claude on Mac, Windsurf, the OpenAI Agents SDK.
Yeah.
They're compatible too.
Correct. That's the beauty of it being an open protocol. The potential for it to be adopted across lots of different tools is there. But yeah, focusing on Composio for a second, their pre-built servers offer some key benefits. Beyond the easy authentication, they're fully managed.
Fully managed, meaning?
Meaning you don't have to worry about the nitty-gritty of setting up and maintaining the connections to Gmail, Slack, Notion, Linear, whatever. They handle that infrastructure.
Okay.
They also claim they offer better accuracy in how the AI agents can actually use the tools, like fewer errors when the agent tries to create a task or send a mail, smoother interactions.
So less setup hassle and potentially more reliable results.
Okay, what's the actual process then? If I want to connect to, say, their Slack server in Cursor, do I need to write code for these pre-built ones?
For many of their pre-built ones, often no coding needed initially.
Yeah.
Within Cursor's MCP settings area, once it's enabled, you should see a list of available servers, maybe fetched from Composio.
Ah, okay.
Each entry usually gives you some info, like how many people are using it, the version, when it was last updated, and crucially, a list of all the actions the server lets you perform, like send message, create channel, etc.
Right.
And often you can just select the server you want to connect to, maybe click a button.
Wow, that sounds super user-friendly. The article also mentions specific options for Claude on macOS, Windsurf, TypeScript, Python. What do those refer to? Are they different ways to connect?
They likely represent different ways you might interact with or build upon MCP. For instance, if you were building your own custom MCP server, you might use their TypeScript or Python SDK, those developer kits we mentioned.
For the pre-built Composio servers, those mentions might point to the tech they're built on, or perhaps specific clients where they offer like extra features or tighter integration.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Now, the article really does hype up what Composio offers support for over 250 tools, this huge collection of pre-built API actions. What makes their approach so compelling in this whole MCP space?
Well, I think Composio's main strength is that focus on providing a complete managed solution where authentication is just handled. That's huge. Plus, the sheer number of tools they support, Slack, Notion, Gmail, Linear, Salesforce, tons more.
Yeah,
Ton of
150 plus is a lot.
Combined with that library of over 20,000 pre-built API actions, it means you can get really powerful integrations up and running incredibly fast, often without writing any custom connector code yourself.
20,000 actions.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they also offer flexibility, running servers locally or remotely, and they really emphasize the compatibility with AI agents for automating tasks just by chatting.
That's a pretty comprehensive package. But, okay, what if I'm a developer and I have a really niche need? Or I want to connect to some internal company tool that Composio doesn't support. The article did briefly touch on creating your own MCP servers using their TypeScript SDK.
Right, and that's definitely an option for people who need more control or want to integrate something custom. As the article said, you can install their TypeScript SDK, the toolkit, using a command like npm install at Model Context Protocol SDK.
npm install at Model Context Protocols DK.
Okay. Then the key bits you'd work with are things like a MCP server class to manage it, defining resources to make data available, tools for specific actions, maybe prompts for reusable LLM interactions. And then you can choose how to run your server like Snydio if it's for a command line thing, or HTTP with SSE for remote web access.
SSE being server sent events.
Yeah, for pushing updates. So you've got both the convenience of pre-built stuff and the power to build your own. Now, let's get back to connecting in Cursor. The article used Hacker News as an example, right? And mentioned a newer way and an older way. What's the recommended method now?
Yeah, the article definitely pushes the newer method. It involves generating a specific command, usually directly from a page on the Composio site. They likely have a generator tool.
Okay.
And the command looks something like npx at Composium QCP at latest setup, then a long URL specific to the server, like the Hacker News one, and then client cursor.
npx at Composium Street at latest setup URL. Client cursor.
Got it. And where do I run that command? Inside cursor.
No, you typically run that in your regular system terminal or command prompt. Outside cursor.
Okay.
Once you run it, it does its thing and creates a configuration file. You then need to put that file in the right place. If the tool is just for one specific project, you can put it inside that project's folder. Keeps things tidy.
Makes sense.
Or if it's a tool you want to use everywhere, in any Cursor project, you can put the config file in your main home directory.
Okay, project specific or global. Got it. And once that config file is sitting in the right spot, how do I know Cursor actually sees it and connects?
Inside Cursor's MCP settings, you should see the server listed and hopefully a little green dot next to it. Green means go successful connection.
Green dot. Perfect. The article also showed some JSON file format examples for different server types. SSE, Python CLI, Node CLI. Do I need to mess with those?
With the newer npx setup method, probably not directly, at least not initially. That command likely handles creating the necessary configuration in the right format to know. Those examples are probably more for context or if you were doing a manual setup.
Okay, good. Green dot is my main signal. So green dot acquired for Hacker News. How do I actually use it now inside Cursor?
Right, so you just bring up Cursor's agent, the chat interface, usually Shrell plus I.
Yeah, Control plus I.
And you just ask it a question using natural language related to Hacker News, like, find Hacker News top posts of today.
Just type that in the chat.
Yeah.
And how does Cursor know which MCP server to ask if I have like Slack and Hacker News and Notion all connected?
Good question. The system, the underlying AI agent framework, is designed to be smart about that. It analyzes your prompt, find Hacker News top posts, and figures out, okay, this sounds like a job for the Hacker News server. It routes the request intelligently.
Okay, so it does the routing automatically based on the question.
Ideally, yes. And in that Hacker News example, the article mentioned something interesting. If maybe no posts hit some top score threshold right away, the agent might even follow up automatically and ask the server for, say, the latest 10 posts instead. Shows a bit of, intelligent back and forth.
That's pretty slick. It feels very seamless, like these tools are just built into the conversation. Okay, let's broaden out. Let's talk more practical, real-world uses. Hacker News is cool, but what about daily development stuff? The article mentioned a few others.
Exactly. While Hacker News is a neat demo for seeing how to connect, the real power shines when it smooths out your everyday coding grind. The article highlighted the LinkedIn MCP server, for instance.
The LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Inside my code editor.
Oh.
Okay, that's interesting. What would a developer use that for?
Well, the article notes that for some actions, especially maybe posting or connecting, you might need to do an initial OAuth step, click a link in your browser just to authorize it. Makes sense, prevents spamming.
Right, authorization.
Once you're connected, you'd see the available actions in Cursor. Maybe you could quickly share a technical blog post you wrote, or look up a potential collaborator's profile, research companies, all without alt-tabbing over to LinkedIn's website.
Okay, so maybe more for that professional networking, information gathering side of things. What about something closer to the actual code? The linear MCP server got mentioned.
Yeah, the linear server is a fantastic example of workflow enhancement. It lets you do things like fetch your current tickets, create new bug reports, update the status of a task, all directly from Cursor's agent.
While looking at the code that needs fixing.
Exactly. Imagine finding a bug, highlighting the code, and telling the agent, create a high-priority linear ticket for this bug, assign it to me.
Okay, yeah, that would save a lot of clicks and context switching.
Definitely. The article even pointed to a video showing exactly that. It really streamlines the whole feedback loop.
Nice. What about Notion? So many dev teams use Notion now for docs, PRDs, planning.
Absolutely. The Notion MCP server could be super valuable there. You could ask the agent, fetch the product requirements doc for feature X, or find the database schema notes in Notion. Maybe even update a status on a project page. The article suggested combining it maybe with the linear server. So you could fetch the specs from Notion, then create the corresponding tickets in linear, all within that single agent interface.
Wow, chaining commands across different tools.
Potentially, yeah. Like LinkedIn, Notion would likely need that initial OAuth dance in the browser to grant permission. But once it's set up, you could just ask, what are my assigned tasks in the Q3 project board in Notion?
Okay, I'm really starting to see the picture now. It's about pulling all those essential satellite tools, task tracking, documentation, communication, even networking, right into the main cockpit, the IDE.
That's the core idea, reducing that context switching, keeping you focused in your primary environment.
It genuinely sounds like it could lead to some serious productivity gains and just less mental friction.
And remember, as the article stressed, these are just a handful of examples. With more and more MCP servers becoming available, especially through platforms like Composio simplifying access, the potential for building really cool, tightly integrated developer workflows is just going to keep growing.
Okay, amazing. Let's try and wrap this up. Let's summarize what we've covered in this deep dive into MCP, Cursor, and Composio. What are the absolute key takeaways you'd want our listeners to walk away with?
Right. I think the main thing is MCP is this powerful new open protocol. It's standardizing how AI agents can talk to and use all sorts of different apps and data sources.
Open protocol.
Yeah.
Key point.
And platforms like Composio are making it way more accessible right now. They offer a whole catalog of pre-built, fully managed MCP servers. And crucially, they handle the often tricky authentication part for you.
Yeah, that built-in auth seems huge.
Which makes it much, much easier to connect your code editor, like Cursor, to dozens of essential services you probably use every single day.
And the real bottom line, the benefit for you, the listener, is about getting more control over your development workflow.
Exactly.
It's about cutting down on those interruptions, those distractions from constantly switching windows and apps. By bringing these vital tools into your IDE, you can stay focused on the code, stay in the zone, and hopefully, see a real boost in your productivity.
Totally. So maybe here's a final thought for you to chew on. Think about your own day-to-day routine as a developer. Which tools, which services are you constantly flipping back and forth to?
Good question to ask yourself.
Yeah. Which of those workflows could be totally transformed if they were integrated this deeply? Check out what's possible with platforms like Composio, explore those MCP servers, and just imagine the efficiency of having one single conversation, one interface to manage tasks that right now might involve jumping between like half a dozen different apps.
That single conversation for complex tasks?
Yeah.
That's a powerful idea to end on.